Okay, everybody. It's another week of fun, frolic, and frustrations here at Salamander Armoury. Last week, I did not do a knife chat, and so far, I'm running a couple minutes late. So hopefully, nobody showed up, and I was here, and they decided to leave me alone. Anyway, we'll see if anybody shows. In the meantime, excuse me. I've been advised, as they say, to whenever somebody writes a question that um, I should read it because not everybody can read the question see, because I had no idea that they couldn't. So that's what we'll be doing from now on. If anybody writes a question, I'll go ahead and read it off and then answer it after I read it. That way, anybody that shows up later that can't see the texts or whatever these things are, I guess it is a text, they'll know what I'm not talking about. So me just, wording stuff out and looking like an idiot. I do that enough as it is. But it's Sunday night at 2100 hours here in the wild of the Florida jungle. On what happened, like I said, I did not do a knife chat last week. Sue just had her surgery, first of a couple I told. It was a little more involved than we thought it was going to be, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. She is still recovering. She is more or less listening to the doctor. Not completely listening to the doctor. I can't fault her there because I don't hear somebody, especially doctors. I don't know why. Maybe they're French. But what do I have against the French? Oh my God, I don't know. But she's feeling much better. Um, I am running around here like a dervish trying to take care of her and take care of the house and take care of the critters and take care of work and stuff like that. I am a little behind on my shipping. I will admit this. I will be sending everybody's been waiting for stuff. Um, it will be going out Tuesday or Wednesday, and Wednesday actually. Tomorrow we have another medical appointment, so that'll be delayed a couple of days on that. But it will be going out this week, I assure you. And new stuff will be going up on the website. Um, what's going up is I found a couple more of those Japo blades that I did for book 4. This one here I'm working on is gray over black, gray crackle over black, uh, lacquer with gray Tsukito over black Samigawa with, I do believe, uh, dragonfly fittings. Yes, dragonfly fittings. I still have to tie off the suka on this one, and we will put that on the website in the next 24 to 36 hours. So please go over there and take a peek. The info's below. Other than that, I'm doing leather work, um, working on book 4. That's getting so close I can smell it. Right now, as I said in my video I just posted a couple of days ago, I am doing the section foundry work, casting, Rome bar stock, uh, alloys, German silver, white bronze, uh, naval brass, jewelers, jewelers bronze, a whole bunch of other different copper alloys, um, such as for bar stock, or even a section on lost wax casting where you can actually cast the pieces in itself. Casting is not hard. Just got to be real careful because you are dealing with very, very, very hot liquids, and I don't even want to think about how nasty it could be if you spilled even a small crucible, let's say maybe a pound of molten whatever, onto the floor, splashing around. Let me explain something to you. A long time ago, back in the 1990s, late 1980s, early 1990s, one of my friends, a very, very talented man, Joe Hampson, um, I have a couple of pieces in the back cover of my first book, as well as in the book on wax casting and stuff like that. His claim to name was one. He was a fantastic artist, a great guy, a very warped and twisted sense of humor, worse than me. You can believe that. His big thing was he did the swords He did the Atlantean sword. He did the opponent's father's sword, and he did the Valerian sword for the movie Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sandal Bergman, with James Earl Jones playing the bad guy. And anyway, so that's his big claim to fame. The man more talent. He's more talent than I'll ever have. And he was just an amazing man. Well, he was doing some. He was a sculptor too, so he was doing some wax work. And his idea of a formal attire was, ironing his cutoff shorts and starching his tank top. And he was working with a wax pot. Now, you guys are aware of what that is. It's basically one big tank of molten wax. And this stuff is about 400 degrees. And he had an accident. It spilled. And he was burned severely on his arms, his chest, and his upper legs. The man was in recovery for months, over a year actually, on some spots. He had to wear the compression bandages and everything else because it was pretty gnarly. And he said he couldn't even begin to describe the agony he was in. So that was wax. So can you imagine what it would have been like with molten metal? I don't want to think about it. I just shudder. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies. And very few things scare me. But anyway, you have to stay safe with this stuff. And so I'm at that where I'm discussing, where am I discussing about? Safety. I'm discussing safety right now. I'm also discussing crucibles. I did that last video. And I described the alloys, how to alloy, everything else. So right now I'm just describing making the flasks, which are the crags, for the sand casting, what type of sand to use, how to build furnaces, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a nice book. It should be pretty good. It's going to be a big book. It'll be the first one. And it's probably the last one I ever write, thank God. It's been a long time coming. But it seems the more that I write, the more there is a cover. And the more there's a cover means the more I got to write. So it's like a vicious circle. So I got to put the end stop somewhere. So once I get this section done, I'll see where I'm sitting. So I still got to finish up the section of Japanese blades, basically the polishing. I'll get the photography on the whole book, line drawings, and that. So nobody showed up yet. So I'm sitting here yattering along myself. I'll give people 5-10 minutes, and then I'll sign off. Nobody shows up because I'll run stuff to talk about. I am not a very interesting person. I live a very dull life, which is what I like. Interesting lives are just too interesting for me. I just want to hammer, make my blades, pay the bills, and go on with my life, what there is to it. But as I said before, Sue had her surgery, and she is recovering. I'm very grateful for that. And we're just plugging along. And if anybody does show up, hopefully that's answer some questions. That's some questions I got to answer. But somebody showed up. Not nobody. Well, hello. Not nobody. Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate that. Have a question, please feel free to just yattering on. The ramblings of a sick and twisted, demented mind. And Luke makes knives. Hello, Luke makes knives. So they are here. Yay! Yep. Hi, the liquor and the women. We're all here. So if one of you two have a question, please feel free to ask. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for my health. If I was, I guess I would be okay. I don't know. But let's see what else. Still got the crucibles in the video. My friend Alex said this one looks like the used one looks like an art project. Kind of looks like that. What was that? What's that Japanese pottery? Where they buried it in debris and garbage and rakuware. I wouldn't drink out of it though. Like grass all over it. All the stuff that's inside, that's some nasty stuff. It's all the little bits of fight and chunks of steel in there. everything else. I'll be going to that. I'm going to Billy Crucible's in book 4 too. That'll be in the. I think that'll be. Put that into the Woods section. No, I think I'll put the casting section. Yeah, yeah. I'll put the casting. It'll be in there somewhere between the Woods chapter of the work of the Foundry Work chapter. It's going to be an interesting book. I've been a long-time fan and owner of your books from way back. Well, thank you. I hope you got something useful out of them. Just made a stoneware creamer that looks similar. Oh, really? Did you kind of like raku it? Or what do they call it, where they bury it in the stuff? Because I guarantee you that creamer didn't get as hot as that crucible did. When that crucible hit 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it stayed there for, what, an hour? A little under an hour while it was cooking. Is there a specific purpose of the spiral blades, or is it an aesthetic? What do you mean by spiral blade? I have no idea what cone 8 means as far as Fahrenheit goes. But the specific purpose of the spiral blade, that sounds very Dungeons and Dragons-y. Oh, I had to bring up Dungeons and Dragons, didn't I? I know the people that came up with Dungeons and Dragons from TSR Games back when it was. Oh, they had such a uproar with that game. They were burning it, saying it was satanic, and the guys over at TSR, go ahead and just print more. But I have no idea what you mean by spiral. But do you mean one that actually spirals and twists, or one that goes back and forth like a snake? Little wavy blades. There was a belief that, well, that's one thing about. You got my VHS tape. Well, that goes back. It's now on DVD. They even have my VHS tape. Yeah, the twisted ones. I don't know. I mean, I never really got it. I never could understand it. I mean, I've seen them. Back in the 1980s, Browning Archery came up with an actual spiral arrowhead, broadhead for hunting. And the idea was it would just basically cut and just, cut like a quick cutter going into the wound and really cause a heavy wound channel, which encouraged hemorrhaging out and easier to track, and then animal drops sooner because, edge weapons, unless they do a total decapitation or sever something major in the critter, honestly, they kill by exsanguination, which means that animals bleed out. Now, I did hit an elk with one of those back in 1976. Fall 76, after I got off the Freedom Train for the bicentennial. I got to guard the Louisiana Purchase, and the wound channel was pretty severe in that elk. I hit him. Well, it would be lower chest, which is all the vitals are, and it just made a hole about the size of a 4-bit piece. And it just, guy bled out real quick. Well, that was the second elk I ever got. And I guess that was the whole idea, is to open up wound channel. But actually, I think it's a gimmick. I mean, I guess they're running out of ways to make a knife. I mean, I never really paid it much mind. But I imagine sharpening would be a real bear. Is it a twisted blade for people who are too nice to twist the knife? As far as I know, that's a good explanation as any, because I never really paid it any mind. I don't really know of any so-called knife with cutting edges that had a corkscrew twist to it. I've seen some stilettos that did, but those aren't cutting. Those are just, deep pokies. They're for thrusting and stabbing only. But I think it would kind of lose the whole usefulness of the blade for anything but stabbing. It'd be very difficult to carve anything with it because the edge goes, there's nowhere for it to really go except for, sticking in. Interesting question, though. I might look into that. Uh, Personally, like I said, I have no desire or interest in making one of those. I've done, twisty things on stilettos and with triangular blades as well. And triangular blades are no fun. Oh boy, with the fullers on each face. Oh, they hurt. They are really painful to make. I would say physical pain is definitely nerve wracking because you got to make everything lined up, and they're triangular blades. Like it's fuller on each side. Makes a really nasty looking cross section. Um, but as far as twisting a knife in the body, I don't want to stay that close that long. Get in and get out. Make sure you got placement right, and that's it. But I really don't need to go into how to murder somebody or terminate somebody's life force. I've done too much of that in my life. I don't want to do that anymore. I just it's not that good anyway. But I've seen a lot of weird stuff come out of some of these places. I tell you, I think is funnier now is a Gerber Mark II. If you guys are not um, aware of what a Gerber Mark, the Gerber Mark One was a tiny little boot knife, um, cast aluminum handle on it with a blade about maybe 4 or 5 inch blade, 6 inch blade I think tops, and it was flat ground, had a nice double edge, and had a little what they call I guess gator skin. I forget what they call them, and gator grip or something like that, and was actually set to the point where the handle was sort of a little bit offset, so it would go right down your boot and it wouldn't rub up against your calf. And then about 1975 or so, 74, 75, might be 74. I carried 175 and I broke it. Maybe 74 or earlier. They came up with Gerber Mark II, which was actually a leaf-shaped blade, a little wasp center, but wider at the base, comes in narrow and widens up a little bit more on the tip and comes with that. But the first third or so blade length, maybe up to a half, I can't remember correctly, is all like these really wicked like finger serrations on each side, like that. And they were like thin as hell. And those things were sharp. And actually had a really offset. The earlier ones did had an offset on the blades where the blade was like canted on the hand a little bit. So it'll go into your boot and not rub on your calf. Anyway, I got involved in an altercation where I had to use it, and it broke right at uh, the serrations. These things are really long serrations, maybe a good quarter-inch, not longer than that. I'm going from memory. This is 50. Okay, and it snapped. So I get back to where I was going, and I called Gerber, and they asked me, I broke the knife, and I said, well, send both pieces back, and they'll replace it. I ain't going back there to get that damn knife part. Anyway, I sent them the handle, and they sent me a new one. And this one didn't have the offset on the. I think Stewie the Wonder Kitty's in here. Oh, he might be making a up here, but that didn't have the offset on the handle. I don't even think Gerber makes those anymore. I think they're collector's item. So I had one of the first ones. It cost me was it like $99 the PX, something like that. And, it was something. But yeah, it snapped right off. I mean, here I am. I'm holding a part of a knife. This guy's all upset. Well, I just wanted to do my job, and one of my jobs was like putting him down. But he didn't see that way. But we danced a little bit. And I'm still here. But that was a Gerber Mark II, and those are things that. But they did cut real well. I mean, Gerber at that point in time, before they were bought, I think by Fiskars, quite a few years back. Um, and they made a really nice knife. They weren't as highly polished as other knife manufacturers were, where they were cut out. I forget what kind of steel they were. I'm gonna think about that. But yeah, Gerber was one of the knife makers for. They were actually considered bench-made knives, where they weren't all done by machine. There's a lot of handwork. They were hand ground, hand fitted, and the grips were cast on these. Were cast directly onto the blade, which was one of those things back then, which was really a revolutionary uh, process at the time, which it was and it wasn't. Because if you go back to the 1940s, 1950s with the great Hrisoulas. That's another blade maker who does not get the recognition he deserves. Mr. Ruana was a cowboy, and he did a lot of work with spring steels. Basically, Studebaker springs, because he thought the Studebaker springs were much more superior than any other manufacturer's leaf springs. Still 5160. I mean, but that's what he believed, and he made a nice knife. They were thick, they were heavy, but they would cut. And what he did was he used to make the blades. He didn't put them into a dedicated sand casting flask. He'd put them down into the coat, dust it, pack it, flip it over, he'll put it back on top of it, dust it, and then he'll just cast the handles in aluminum right onto the blades, then cut them out. But his claim, one of the other claim to fame is he dovetailed the antler. His big thing was using mule deer or whatever deer antler, whatever antler he could find, moose, elk, mule deer, black-tailed deer, whatever he could get his hands on, and then dovetail them into the grip, and then put like 2 little pins in it to keep them going out and back. And they were going anywhere. I mean, his fit and finish, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that good, but I'll tell you that the blade made up for that. He's one of the unsung heroes of knife making, Mr. Ruana. But that's when he was one of the first ones to do that. Now, in the 1950s, early 1960s, there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He bought up a ton of World War II surplus Japanese sword blades. I can't remember his name, but the Japanese sword collectors hate this man. They burn him in effigy every year. I mean, that's how, it's just a seating, because what he did was he cut about the first 10 inches off the business end of a sword, punch a couple of holes in it on the stubby end, and cast a plastic handle on the blade. I've seen half a dozen of them over the years, if that. That was what he did. And said the Japanese, he didn't care who made the sword. I mean, he just bought them by I guess he got an Old Man Bannerman or somebody. I don't know. But he got them from any place you could get. He made a couple thousand of these things. But I can't remember his name. Come to me, I might do a video on him. But that's another person who used to cast on handles. Of course, some of the World War I trench knives with the knuckle bows and stuff like that, they were also cast on. But I worry about that when you talk about something that hot, because it'll affect the heat treat, probably on the blade, once you keep the blade cool. And then you have problems with cracking, putting up stress risers because of the thermal shock between a cold area and a warm area. You got to know what you're doing. But Mr. Ruana never had any problem with that because he knew what he was doing. And he was another one of those old time cowboy smiths, just like Old Man Buck when he first started out. Buck knives have been a standard knife for generations now. I talked to Chuck Buck for a while, and he's a real character. But I'm so far out of the loop, living down here in the Florida jungle, that I don't know. Will somebody ask a question? Come on, you two. Ask something about the twisted blades. Because I'm racking my brain here. Not that there's much to rack, but let's see what else about who else casted on handles. That's about all the ones I know that did that. Doesn't mean there's anybody else doing it, but a lot of these what I call mall ninja knives, ones that never ever seen that are being supposedly usable with those die cast handles, that they just they don't last. They use I think, what the hell is it called now? It's a low melting point alloy metal. Not Inconel. I'll think of it. But it's injected molded right into the knife blade is put into the injection molded, and the mold closes. I'm not squirted in there. It hardens. It comes out, and it's finished. Um, Tombak, what do they call it? I don't know. It's really a crappy material. Okay. Back in 70s, 80s, 90s to early 2000s, on these little cheapy 22, 25 automatic pistols, like Jennings and Jimenez and a couple others, they used to make these. Clark. Hey, Jack. You made it, though. That's all that matters. Anyway, Clerk, C-L-E-R-K, yeah, C-L-E-R-K-E. They made revolvers out of this stuff with the frame, but the barrel and revolver cylinder was steel, supposedly. And like Jennings and Jimenez made the whole pistol out of this, except for basically the barrel and firing pin and a few little parts. And this stuff was so bad that it got to blow up. And that's one of the terms it's called. Cone 8 is 2305. Okay, yeah, that's about 500 degrees short of what these things were. These crucible hit, because it hit about 2850. And it's just toastless crucibles. Anyway, so Jennings just make these metals, and they were horrible pistols. I mean, the term Saturday Night Special, that was it. I actually know people collect those. I'm not one of them. They collect the really cheapy ones. It's like the old ROM revolvers. That was a revolver that caused a Saturday Night Special lawsuit to come into play. But with casting on handles, especially with metal, it's, we're not talking like casting on a pewter bolster or something like that with pewters at 350, 400 degrees, which is below my temperature for tempering, so it would have no effect on the blade. But these things, I have no idea what the melting point is, but an aluminum, stuff like that, you're talking about 16 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. And that can mess up with the hardening if you're not careful and know what you're doing. So that thing about casting on grips is beyond my scope right now. I really have no desire to do it. I'm much more happier sticking everything on the back end and tightening everything up and be done with it, because there's no worry about any sort of problem with the heat treat, because you can have the greatest steel in the world that's heat treated properly and ain't going to cut for anything. Or you can have a mediocre steel, which has optimal heat treating, will cut pretty damn good. So heat treating is one of the proper thermal treatment, aka heat treating, or loosely called tempering, is one of the more important things on as far as a blade cuts. Another one is blade geometry. But you've got to combine it all in order to get a decent blade. And a lot of these cutlery companies get with it. I mean, they're pretty good. But what's getting to me is a lot of these companies that used to be American made have now sold out made in China. And the one that really kind of hurt me was one I carry every day, right here, Imperial Schrade. This is an old one. I've carried this thing for 20 years, and they're now made in China. They used to be made in New York, I do believe, and it's a shame. I mean, if you look at American cutlery, Schrade, Uncle Henry, Old Hickory, Imperial, all those companies back from the early 1900s to late 1800s, early 1900s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, up to just this side of World War II, were all basically made by several companies, and they were doing the old-fashioned way. And now they're being sent overseas. And that's the sad thing about it. Our cutlery, quote unquote, industry is really not what it once was. Um, as far as quality goes, I don't know about the quality of the Chinese stuff. It's like everything else. It's probably mediocre at best. Excuse me. But anyway, that's about all I know on that subject. I don't need to go on a tirade about overseas items coming into this country because whether we like it or not, we are in an international world now, and people that just buy for price get what they pay for. And I'm not saying that all the stuff coming out of overseas is trash. Just I'm not saying that everything made in this country is wonderful. Junk is being made everywhere. Good stuff is being made everywhere. It's just got to sort through it and find it. Um, Case in point, 1,500 years ago, the finest steel in the world was made in India, Indian subcontinent. They were playing with crucible steels, aka woods or boulad, whatever you call it. So it was so valuable. It was actually a trade item. The woods cakes, whatever they call them, woods bars, and they're traded all over the world. It's amazing, But then the British got involved in India, and the Smiths back then, when the British first hit, they didn't want the British to come and learn the secrets. And yes, they were secrets back then. They were handed down from master to apprentice, from father to son. And they didn't want the British to learn that because so-called quote unquote, this is true Damascus, okay? This is the real stuff I'm talking about. Indo-Persian sword blades from India, that whole area in there, done in wood steel, were a item for export all over the world. I have seen numerous British blades, Russian blades, French blades, some German blades done with wood steel with the proper cartouches on them telling them who made them. And they were hilted in the fashion of the period of whatever country style it was doing. If they, I've seen a couple of really nice Russian swords, a gorgeous British one, and a very, very beautiful French Mameluke that supposedly belonged to Napoleon III. I don't know if that's true or not. This is what I was told when I looked at it. And they had some beautiful wood blades on it. So that was the true crucible steel. That was coming out of that part of the world. But they were very quiet. That's there was more or less lost, quote unquote, lost, but not really, because there's always somebody doing it someplace at one point in time. It's like Bill Moran when he came up, when he reintroduced pattern welded blades back in the early 1970s. He gets all the ink, and yet people like Bo Hickory, John Anstey, and a couple others that were plugging along in these small shops, not getting any kind of notoriety, they were still doing it. I mean, even in World War II, some of the Solian factories, I think Wolstenholme, a couple of them, would do pattern welded blades for presentation swords and presentation daggers for the SS, Kriegsmarine, the Luftwaffe, and I also think the German Army. And they were, nicely done pattern welded blades, but they were machine done with power hammers and, mass produced. But it was still pattern welded. And to take it one step further, all the old pattern welded shotgun barrels, they're still being made today. You can still buy them, but it's a premium item. They're very hard to find, but they are electro proofed. I think they sleeve them, but I haven't seen one in years, so I don't know what they're currently doing. But when you start looking at history and the way things are done, things change. So for years, for centuries, as I said, the finest sword blades were coming out of India. And then all of a sudden the Brits got involved and everything went. down it went. And then for a while, India was known for making junk, which is sad because. But then again, there were still places. The one that strikes me was a New Delhi gun house that were still doing very good quality swords. Well, here we go again. When Wilkinson went out of the sword business, how long ago? It's been a while back. Wilkinson swords had a reputation for extreme quality. That came from, what do they call it? They call it the Sword Wars, where the British government had problems with quality on their cavalry sabers and infantry swords, where the blades were just not what they should be. They were breaking, they were bending and staying bent. It was just horrible. And the only company that didn't have that problem was Wilkinson. Now, they had better metallurgy. They also cared more. They've paid more attention to detail as far as heat treating and tempering and hardening and all this other stuff. And so they're the ones that survived. And if you get a chance to look at one of their what they call wartime marks, which are the two crossed daggers instead of the crossed swords, it's interesting swords. But they sold their sword business to a gentleman by the name of Poole, Poole, I believe. And he bought all the equipment, all the etch patterns, all the foundry molds and everything else, and he sent them over to India. And I have not seen a Poole sword, but I do believe that they have taken over production for the British Army, military, whatever they call it, Army, Navy, Air Corps, whatever they call it over there, for their swords. I think, if I'm remembering, I might not be in error here, so don't say what I'm taking as gospel, because it's not. To the best of my recollections, these are up to change because, like I said, it's been a while since I heard anything from them. I might have to check into that. Let's see. Yes, sad. I've had my LB for 46 years. Yep, the old ones are durable. The nice thing about some of the older knives, especially your old Hickories and your Uncle Henry's, is the blades will turn black. They'll passivate themselves as they oxidize. And black oxidation is okay. Red oxidation is bad, but black oxidation, that's sort of like rust brewing. And I have a couple of pocket knives that the blades have turned black on many, many years ago. I have an old Boy Scouts knife that had. But durable knives, that's the way it is. Because I was explained to this why, the business of being is calendars. Because you need a new one every year. But now that's even debatable with all these electronic things that are going on. But when it comes to cutlery, quality handmade knife, that's why people buy handmade, is because there's a belief that since it was handmade by somebody that knows what they're doing, it'll be better than something that was made 1,000 of them a day in some factory in, I don't know, who's a what's it land across the ocean. So there is an idea of quality, an expectation of quality. And there's nothing wrong with that. The way I look at it, it doesn't matter what a knife looks like. I've said this many times before. If a knife cuts, and it cuts, and it cuts, and it cuts some more, and when it finally does need to be sharpened, it's easy to sharpen, it maintains that edge, I don't care what the knife looks like. It's a good knife. I mean, if it does its job, and it does it admirably, it's a good knife. Now, if you have a beautiful engraved, gold-plated, silver inlaid, set with precious stones, mother of pearl grips on it, and everything else, and it's a piece of it's just like 420J. If you look at it halfway, it's going to bend and stay that way, or not cut. It's not a knife. It's just an art object. Yeah, it might be pretty looked at, but when it comes to cut something, it's not a knife. So somewhere in between the really ornate piece of high polished nothing and the really rustic piece down here, because try to meet them in the middle. So where you got a nice looking knife and a knife that cuts like crazy. And that's where you want to be. I don't mirror polish anything except for fittings. Because the first time you cut something with carbon steel and there's any kind of acid at all, it's going to turn black or blue or yellow or technicolor, whatever they want to call it. And that's just reaction from the steel. That's where rust, the so-called stainless steel come in, but it's really not stainless, it's stain resistant. As the Germans say, it's rust-free, and it'll keep you from turning the colors. But stainless can corrode, and when it does, it is not fun at all. It is really ugly, because once it gets started, it's hard to passivate it to the point where you can stop it from getting any worse. But it's like anything else, it's all a matter of time and environment. When you look at these stainless steels now, for years, back in the day when Bob Lois first started getting into it, and Queen Cutlery was one of the first ones to use stainless. They call it Queen steel, silver steel they used to call it, and that was 440C. 440C was the quote-unquote king of cutlery for many years, and it's still very popular, even though it's old school like I am. Aerospace term is corrosion resistant steel. Nothing's there. You go. Aerospace term is CRS, corrosion resistant steel. Nothing is stainless. That's right. Nothing is stainless. It's all a matter of severity. But anyway, as I was saying about, thank you, Jack, for that wonderful comment. That's very, very true. So I was saying about the stainless steel. For a long time, when Bob Lois first walked out of that Abercrombie and Fitch with an order for 36 knives, he's thinking, he used to forge. He used to hammer out bar stock and out of round stock. Then he found out he could buy the 440 in flat stock and grind them out from there, and that rest they say is history. So those 36 knives he walked out from Abercrombie and Fitch order. That started the whole market. So for years he was an advocate of 440C, and then the 154 CM came into being, which 154 Crucible modified the CM, which is nothing but a little bit richer electromelt 440C. That became the darling of the custom knife world, and then soon after that was ATS 34, and then everybody started jumping on the wagon, and you have these Wonder alloys and stuff like that. But when push comes to shove, I wouldn't feel falling short if I had a knife with properly heat treated 440C or 154 CM. I would be happy. I mean, if it was properly done, heat treated, thermal treatment's dead on, geometry's great, they'll cut forever. Like I was saying back about pre-cutlery, they had a reputation of being hard to sharpen because the blades were very hard, and they would stay sharp. The reason why is because they were 440C. Queen Cutlery, I do believe, was one of the first companies to use 440 in their knives. So that's a little bit of knife making history tidbit right there. But with all the wonder steels that are coming in with powder metallurgy, compressed metallurgy, sintered metals, now I'm wondering what the hell we're going to do with the so-called 3D printed stuff. I don't know what the next thing is. It's going to be interesting. I've been on this planet for many, many, many years, and I've seen these fats come and go, and I just scratch my head going, what happens, happens. All I do is pop myself in popcorn, sit down and watch. Read all I can, look at the melt specs, use that store-bought education I got, and figure out, okay, this is something I want to play with or not. But I'm so happy just using carbon steels. And the stainlesses I do use have to be forge weldable compatible. And that's where it goes. I keep hearing a kitty around here. Stewie, is that you? Okay. I'm hearing things. They say the mind is the first thing to go. I don't know what the second one is. But when you start looking at the steels, I firmly believe that you should know whatever steel you use intimately, how to heat treat it, how to temper it, how to properly employ it in your manufacturing, because this stuff that is where you make or break the knife. Is a material selection as far as steel goes. And as I said before, properly hardened heat-treated blade on a mediocre steel will cut pretty good, but a really crappy thermal treatment on a very, very high-quality steel, it's not going to be half as good as it should be. So heat treating is one of the most important things, as well as edge geometry and blade design. Now, there are only so many ways to make a knife that actually works. It's a large number, it's still finite. And there are things you can do and things you can't do with a steel, or you might end up with a broken blade, which is, always that chance that you screw the pooch on heat treatment. But if you're careful and you pay attention, those chances are very, very minimal that anything come out like this. So, what else can we discuss here, gentlemen? Anything? Because I'm getting tired of talking to myself here. Come on, answer some questions. Dang nabbit. It's getting late. I gotta take care of my wife here shortly. But other than that, I think it's about it for my ruminating and discussion tonight. As I said, I'll be putting that sword up on the next 24 to 36 hours. I still have to tie off the grip, and then I gotta chop it and pin it. It's done. The lacquer should be dry by now. And, I gotta climb up my ladder tomorrow, which I hate. I put a light bulb in up on my studio because a couple weeks ago I broke another belt, and it actually shot straight up and broke a light bulb. Could you put out a short video letting us? I can certainly do that, Mr. Canada. I also do them on my posts, but apparently they don't reach everybody. There's something going on over there. Huh. Hearing things. But yes, I can do a short video saying the next video chat will be on such and such a date. I will go ahead and do that, sir. Thank you very much. Like I said, I'll take any criticism at all. And if it's good, I'll even incorporate it into something that I'll have to incorporate it into. I'm running out of ideas, folks. But anyway, tomorrow, like I said, we got the little medical things to do tomorrow, and got to take care of that. Take care of the wife. Things are getting interesting here. Like I said, I'm finally getting to the point where I'm starting to sort of get caught up, but I still have a ways to go. I still got to make like 24 swords to send out to my evil minions and other people. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I got to ship out this week. I'll go ahead and do that. And plus, I got to make some more steel. I've got a couple more I got 2 more bars of roots I've hammered out into bar shot, into a bar. And I've got maybe 3 or 4 knives out of those, depending on the size of knives, which bars I want to use. The next videos will probably be on foundry work. I don't know, probably. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet for as videos go, but as far as putting one out, something on adhesives would be nice. That is a sticky subject. Would you be glued to my video if I do something on adhesives? I could do something on adhesives. Yes, I can flap my gummies, gummy adhesives on glue. That could be a fun one. Oh, I could tell you stories about glue. I glued my hand to a bench. Yeah, I'll tell you that when I'm going to do the adhesives. Yeah, I think I'll do that next. Thank you, Mr. Black Swan 2373. I shall do that. See you shortly. I'll go into cyanoacrylates, fast cure, slow cure, 2 cure, high glue. You'll stick around for that one? Okay. I'll do that. That's a good one. I'll do that. Yep, I'll do that next week. Matter of fact, I'll do this week. That's a good subject. I'll bring out the old epoxies, and I'll even go into the stuff that you get like J.D. Weld and what's the other one? Oh, my favorite one are those epoxy putties. Oh, I think those are the worst things you can use because they don't work. I'll even go into that, but they do have a purpose. They fill voids really well. But as far as sticking something together, they just good filling up a void. although they do get hard, but they don't stick very well. At least the ones I use don't stick very well, unless you do a mechanical bond, like do a dovetail and lock them in with really shape on it. I don't know. I had good use of that. I'll even got into contact adhesives like your barge cement, your contact cement, your rubber cements, and stuff like that. Because there is a difference between barge cement, contact cement, and rubber. It's subtle, but it is a big difference, especially with barge cement. But I can do that. That's good. Well, thank you for the idea. I really appreciate that very much. Well, I think I'm going to call it a night. I want to thank you, folks, both of you, for stopping by. I appreciate that. And I will do a video notice on my regular channel with my next knife chat. I'm thinking of bringing back Gun Gab now that I'm starting to get some more time, and I'll be putting that up on the my channel as well. And we'll be going into various firearms laws and reviews and stuff like that there about firearms. I'm not going to show you how to make them. I'm not going to show you how to use them. I'm going to explain them, like why things are supposedly evil because it's got a flash suppressor and a bunch of other idiotic things that people want to disarm the law-abiding for. So I'm serious about doing that again. So I did one, and then everything hit, and Sue had a turn for the worst, and it sort of like fell to the way because I had a higher priority than putting out a Gun Gab video. I don't know where this channel is going. I'm here for the ride, for the duration. I hope I'm making progress because I really don't know. It's hard to get any kind of feedback other than the comments I get occasionally. You just basically work in the dark and hope for the best. I'm like 130 subscribers short of 3,000. I don't know how I got it so high, but I'm not complaining. I would like to hit 10,000 before. I don't know if I will. I don't know if I won't. I have no idea how long I'm going to stay on this planet, but I would like to hit 10,000, and just to see if I could. Other than that, thank you so much. I appreciate the time in your home. I appreciate you spending your time listening to the ramblings of an old man. And even though I'm a cranky old bastard, I do appreciate people enough interest and care to seriously pursue anything. No matter what you do in life, do your best, because good enough really isn't. And in closing, I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me. May the wise Lord Hurmaz bless and keep you. Have a wonderful good night.